Mm-hmm.
I search for the words I don't know the meaning, and try
Good.
and listen how pronunciation, and try to pronunciation too.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to understand how much I think is good the book. I think that I will be awful
Mm-hmm.
to translating my mind. And I don't read in Portuguese. I don't
Good. Okay.
I'm not courageous to this, because I think that I will be with the version Portuguese in my mind, and not the English version.
That's perfect. So if you just keep the English version, then it's much better. So if you are interested in reading further, one tip that I have, important one, you can watch the movie, okay? Because this movie, in this case, we can say that it's very similar to the book. Some important parts are missing, and some important parts have been changed. That's what happens, right, when we have a book turned into a movie. But this one in general is a very good version of the book, so you can watch it. It's on Netflix. It's kind of old. I think it was shot like 15 years ago, but it's a very good one. Hello, Álvaro. Hello, Marcel.
Hello.
I will try to see the old movie, because I think it's better than the news.
In this, well, for this one, I gotta say that I prefer the most recent version, because there is an old one with Colin Firth that it's definitely not my favorite. But there is this one with Keira Knightley. This one is my favorite.
Okay, I will watch.
But Colin Firth is a good Mr. Darcy. It's an important character, and you will see how he performs. It's good too.
But when is this version with Colin Firth from?
It's not
Like
so
super
old
old?
either. Maybe late 90s.
All right, didn't know about it.
Yeah, it's because it's not a very famous version. The one with Keira Knightley is much better and more famous, more popular. They got a better Mr. Darcy. Sorry about that. I like Colin Firth.
Sylvia, we were talking earlier today. Leticia and I. Leticia has just logged in, and she had read the book. She read Pride and Prejudice.
Ah, okay, good. So you're gonna make a lot of contributions today.
I finished to read this book in January this year,
Oh, really?
and yes, I reading Portuguese.
Ah,
My
so
friend,
everything is fresh.
yes, my friend give me this book, and I read this. This is good book.
I'm absolutely biased when it comes to Pride and Prejudice because I have read this book like 10 times. It's my favorite book. I have bought like three different editions so that I could check if there were any differences. And I really like going deep like into this book. It's a very good one. Even though people
Yeah.
say, oh, it's just a novel, there is nothing really special about it. Well, I quite like it.
It,
Probably. I don't know if you guys are like Netflix fans, if you were couch potatoes, if you like to, to have a series marathon now and then. But have you guys heard about Bridgerton?
Yes.
Did you watch it or you just heard about it?
I didn't watch it. I just heard about it because I think that everyone on internet's watching this series now.
Yeah, and I was caught. I was caught in the wave. I gotta say, I wasn't going to give it a try, but after the first episode, now I watched like six in two
You're hooked?
days. It's a very good one, and it's I'm talking about this series, guys, because it's somehow connected to the topic of Pride and Prejudice, and we're gonna talk about it later, okay? Mas então, para a gente começar, I think well, everyone is here already. Então, para a gente começar com o nosso primeiro book club, com a nossa primeira experience, eu queria saber de vocês se vocês já participaram de um book club, Se vocês têm mais ou menos ideia do que é um book club, do que a gente vai de fato fazer aqui, como que a gente pode usar esses clubs, não só o book, né, que a gente pretende fazer outros mais adiante, como que a gente pode usar esses clubs para de fato dar um boost no English que a gente usa like in everyday situations.
I was participate on one time, but in all Portuguese, not English. And we're discussing about the book in question and like I don't know how to say troca, like
Exchanging.
yes, exchanging views of the book and this.
Okay, exchanging points of view, right?
Yes.
That's what makes, guys, a book, let's say a very rich tool, okay? Because each person will have a different view on the same book. Even though we read like only 10 paragraphs or only one short chapter, that's what's gonna happen here today. Probably we're gonna have some different points of view on it, even though it was really short, okay? And that's what's beautiful about a book, about a movie, about anything that we can analyze and talk about. We're gonna share our point of view, okay? So, Letícia, Marcel, Álvaro.
I never participate in one, but I imagine that it's good um, for someone who wants to read more and I can, like Fernando said, the exchange of experiences about this one book, how the view of someone else can make your own view different from the same thing.
This is very much how you can add to your own point of view. It's like every time I talk about books or movies with my friends, they come up with ideas like, and I'm like, it's like a sparkle, you know? Wow, I had never seen things that way. And it's fantastic when you can actually sit down and talk about something and get a different view on the same thing. I'm just going to have a splash of it right here. I don't know if you watch Black Mirror, but every time I discuss a Black Mirror episode, I get a different point of view about it, and it's fantastic. Letícia, Álvaro.
I never participated in the book club too, but I think this is good. Same point Marcel say. So I great this idea. I like this idea.
Good. So hopefully we're gonna have many more this year, and we're gonna talk about many books and many movies and series and stuff like that. What about you, Álvaro?
I try.
Oh, I'm sorry, Letícia.
Okay, no problem. I try following Color Book online. Has a canal.
Channel?
Has a channel in YouTube. His name is Ler Antes de Morrer. And this channel say about books and clássicos. And eu fiquei sabendo, I know this book, Pride and Prejudice, in this channel.
Through this channel, then you got familiar with this book.
Yes. Ela faz alguns resumos e ela começou a fazer uma leitura coletiva.
That's fantastic, and this is what really gets us like interested in reading a book, right? It's I don't know. I like going to the bookstore and looking at the piles of books and having to choose just one. For me is like I get really anxious that I have to choose one or two. But I like the experience of going into a bookstore, choosing a book, like listening to people talking about it. And that's what pushes me into reading a book in the first place. Yeah. Álvaro, what can you say about the book club experience?
Well, I never participated of a book club either, and I am very interested because I think it can be a good experience to improve my English and also my pronunciation because I think I have to. In my case, I try to read my texts or books aloud to improve my pronunciation. So I think it's going to be a good experience.
And it's good because we're going to talk about the same thing, like everybody has read the same thing, and we're going to be work with the same vocabulary, the same words, the same structures, and to improve our English, we can go deeper into them in case there is a doubt, like I couldn't understand this context, this or that, and we can work on it together. Samuel, Thiago, hello, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Good
So,
afternoon.
Tell us about the book club experience.
I'm not participating in a book club yet, but I've heard about that. I've saw many movies that's the same subject about the book club, and I like read so much. I like bookstores. I like talk about books, but I never participated in a book club. Because of that, I liked the cross-mode idea so much.
Good. So I hope you will like the whole thing, right? The whole experience. It's gonna be a very good
Yes.
one. And you, Samuel?
This is my first time in a book club too. This year I find a new way to improve my English, and I think read a book is a very good option for me. And I think reading a book we improve our vocabulary, pronunciation, and I think it's a very good option to improve.
All right, very good. Uma coisa que eu vou contar para vocês, guys, even in Portuguese, because it's about the learning process. A linguagem é uma coisa, né? A gente tem a nossa língua materna, que é o português. Então, com certeza, para a gente é mais fácil absorver uma ideia em português do que em inglês. Mas quando a gente tem contato com uma ideia, com um contexto pela primeira vez numa outra língua, aquilo se torna a nossa referência de linguagem para um determinado contexto. Então, como a Fernanda falou, eu não li em português para tentar, né, fixar ali a versão em inglês. É muito isso no processo não só de leitura, né, em qualquer processo que a gente tenha com a língua. Quando a gente tem contato com aquela ideia pela primeira vez naquela língua, nesse caso, né, que a gente está aprendendo, né, que a gente está trabalhando, que é o inglês, a gente vai fazer uma primeira referência diretamente naquela língua. A gente vai tentar fazer com que nosso cérebro não passe pelo português, não faça o desvio do português para chegar naquela ideia, naquele conceito que a gente viu ali naquela língua. E é mais ou menos isso, tá? Que a gente pode tentar fazer com os livros, com várias outras coisas. Então, toda a nossa visão de mundo, ela passa muito pela nossa língua materna, porque é a forma, a maneira como a gente tem contato com as ideias. Quando a gente tem contato com uma ideia numa língua diferente, pode ser que a gente enxergue aquilo de uma maneira diferente, porque o canal, o caminho que a gente usou foi outro. Então, é uma experiência muito interessante que a gente faz com o nosso próprio cérebro, de como a gente monta, de como a gente vê essas ideias, ok? But speaking of the book club, primeiro dando umas dicas para vocês, que eu acho que eu já dei antes para alguns, mas se vocês não estivessem, a gente sabe que livro não é exatamente muito barato no Brasil, né? Apesar de a gente ter um mercado editorial relativamente grande, a gente sabe o quanto é difícil, né? Às vezes a gente encontrar uma grande livraria com bons títulos, às vezes a gente, né, compra pela internet, aí a gente tem aquele tempo para chegar. Então, se vocês quiserem comprar títulos em inglês, vou dar duas dicas para vocês. Primeiro, a SBS, que é uma livraria internacional, ok? Não ganho nada por isso, tá, gente? É só porque é a minha livraria de referência quando eu quero comprar um livro em outra língua, né, em outro idioma, normalmente eu procuro primeiro na SBS, que a chance é maior de achar. However, a gente tem uma edição que chama Collins Classics, que é uma edição mais barata. Hello, Lohane. São edições mais baratas, tá, gente? São edições menores. Não é aquela edição bonitona, de capa dura, com aquele papel maravilhoso, não. Mas são livros com preços muito acessíveis. Então, eu consigo encontrar na Saraiva, na Leitura, na própria SBS, livros de 20, 25 reais, vários títulos clássicos em inglês. Ok? Então, vocês podem dar uma olhadinha aí, Collins Classics. Vocês conseguem comprar, assim, a bunch of books com um preço bom e vocês encontram muitos títulos, alright? São edições, assim, vocês vão achar todos os livrinhos são parecidos, eles têm a capa preta, o fundo preto, com uma imagem de capa, e vocês vão ver que eles são menores, né? São edições menores, mas if you don't want to spend a lot of money on books, you can look for Collins Classics. You will find many, many titles in English, okay? Leitura, Saraiva, SBS, all the big bookstores in Brazil, they sell Collins Classics. All right, but first of all, let's talk about Pride and Prejudice. For those who haven't, oh, by the way, have you read the first chapter?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? All right,
No.
but have you ever heard about the story, about the book, about the
Yes,
movie?
I know the story because I saw the move.
Mm-hmm.
And I speak about the story with other people, but I haven't read the first chapter.
Okay, but it's good because you have had contact with the story.
Yeah.
You know what it is about, right? Because we're talking about weddings this week, our topic this week is weddings. We're going to talk about weddings, but we're going to find a different view on it. We're going to talk about weddings 250 years ago. What was it like? How did women find a husband 250 years ago, 300 years ago? Why was it so important for women to find a husband? What was the meaning of remaining single? Nowadays, women have a choice, right? We can choose to marry, we can choose to live single forever. Okay, nowadays, even though we can choose to be like single, there are comments, right? Now picture that 300 years ago. That woman, like, how come she wants to be single? Nobody wants to be single. So
Biggest problem in the age.
yes, so if we face problem nowadays, we face some problems, we face some comments nowadays. Now imagine the poor girls 300 years ago. They turned 20. If they hadn't found a husband at 20, they would be considered a maid. Like, she's 20 and she doesn't have a husband. Poor girl. Okay, so I'm going to show you the PDF. Are you familiar with the time? The title of the book, are you familiar? The title of the book, Pride and Prejudice. Do you know those two words?
Yes.
Yes.
It's an interesting title for me, because I think we only really understand the title when we get to the end of the book. Like within the first pages, within the first chapters, I kept, the first time I read the book, even the second, I kept on thinking, what's the point in this title? Why is it this, like, for me, it made no sense until I could read it like the second, a third time, and things started to become clearer, you know? So I'm going to ask you, Alvaro, to read the first part that we have here.
Pride and Prejudice, romantic novel by Jane Austen, published anonymously in 3 volumes in 1813, a classic of English literature written with incisive wit and superb character delineation. It centers on the turbulent relationship between Elizabeth Bennet, the daughter of a country gentleman, and
Fitzwilliam
Fitzwilliam Darcy, a
Darcy.
rich Darcy, a rich aristocratic landowner.
Landowner. Okay, so
Land.
guys, we have some important things here that we could talk about. So we have the daughter of a country gentleman. It meant a lot at that point in English, like late 1700s and early 1800s, and even like later. It meant a lot for people to have land. Do you understand? To have land, like to be a landowner.
Yes.
So, Thiago, can
Like
you help us?
yes, I think so. That's a person that have a lot of land,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of land. It's proper owner,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of land, and it's a rich man because of that.
Mm-hmm. So, both Elizabeth's father and Fitzwilliam Darcy, they were landowners. Of course, Elizabeth's father, in not such a proportion. He had a state, right? What they called a state. It was like a property. And Fitzwilliam Darcy, on the other hand, he was also a landowner, but he owned a lot of land. So he was a very rich man, coming from a family that wasn't, how can I say, he wasn't royalty. He wasn't like a duke. He wasn't a viscount, something like that. But he had the land and he had the money. So it meant a lot for society at that point, even though there was some connection with royal blood, and we can see that in the book. Okay, so a few questions for you here. Let me see, Leticia, what can you say about the period when the book was written?
This. What can you say about the period when the book was written?
What was going on in the world? What was going on in England, in Europe? Do you have any idea?
I don't remember. So.
Anybody, guys?
In 1813, yeah.
1813, the book
yes.
was published. There is an important point here. Nobody actually knows for sure when the book was written. We know when it was published, but people think it was written like in the end of the 1700s or in the beginning of the 1800s. Okay, but it was published in 1813.
Okay.
It was close to French Revolution, right? A little bit afterwards.
Which is mentioned in the book. That's why we know, right? Because the book, Leticia read it. So probably, Leticia, you remember all the time they mentioned the militia. Do you remember?
I remember
do condado de blah, blah, blah. The militia of the shire of. So the militia was around because they were getting ready for Napoleonic Wars. So that plays a very important role in the book, right? Eles falam o tempo todo dessas milícias, né, que eram exércitos que não era o exército real, né, que eram outros exércitos organizados, mas isso é um pano de fundo da história, porque a gente fala o tempo todo ali de hierarquia social, e essas pessoas, elas tinham um lugar no exército naquele tempo, eles tinham um certo reconhecimento, mas eles não chegavam nem perto de ser um landowner, right?
Okay. I remember this part.
Yeah, so that's why the book mentions the militia. Para quem só leu o primeiro capítulo, ainda não vai ter, mas se vocês derem sequência na leitura, vocês vão ver o tempo todo falando da militia of the Shire, blá, blá, blá. Okay, what can you say about the characters described in the first chapter? Então, basicamente, no primeiro capítulo, a gente só tem Mrs. Bennet and Mr. Bennet. right? It's a short dialogue. O que vocês acharam do Mr. Bennet e da Mrs. Bennet nesse primeiro contato que vocês tiveram com eles?
The woman is so, I don't know how to say, arrogante.
Arrogant, conceited.
Yes, and decided some things that is so egocentric. I think
selfish.
And the man is, in the first moment, is a little bit, I don't know how to say, desligado.
He is not really connected with reality.
Yes, and after enter in the conversation, so like the woman, a lot of I don't know how to say this, but treat the other people who this talking about so like a product, if can enter in the family, just to make the vontades dela, like this. I don't know how to say in English.
Just to serve.
Yes, just like a product.
All right. So Leticia, you have read like the whole book in Portuguese. Can you tell us a bit about what you think about Mr. and Mrs. Bennet? What you think about the couple? Do you think they are a good match?
I think what's the last question?
Do you think Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, do you think they are a good match?
No.
Why not?
These people is very different. This form the words, and their opinions is different. The form de reagir e pensar.
The way they see the world is like absolutely different from one another,
yes,
right?
And they have a little stress and between they people.
So they don't, do you feel as if they have ever loved one another?
Sorry, no, I don't understand.
About the couple, Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, do you feel as if they love one another, or they have never loved one another? There was love at some point, but they just continued together because of convenience.
Okay, I feeling they just continues together because he don't like several actions with your wife.
He didn't really approve of his wife's behavior, right?
Yes.
But divorce at that point in time wasn't an option, so they had to be together, right?
Yeah. Then wedding is very important choice because it's forever in this age.
Yeah, marriage was forever then.
Yeah,
so
marriage.
It wasn't a matter of choice. So Álvaro, did you have the same impression about Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, or have you seen something different?
Well, I think they really love each other, because I believe they were married by an arranged wedding, like the most of couples of that age. And I didn't read the book, but the chapter that I read shows that Mr. Bennet is very indifferent for everything that Mrs. Bennet usually says. So I don't think they are really in love, you know.
Yeah, the impression that we have is that he doesn't really care about what she says. It doesn't matter what she says, right?
He's totally indifferent and sarcastic sometimes. So
all the time, actually. If you read the whole book, you will find out that Mr. Bennet is definitely one of my favorite characters in the book, because he's, his wife doesn't really get what he says, and it's fun, right? He tries to say things all the time, and she never catches it.
Yeah, he usually make jokes like, I don't care, I don't give a shit.
Basically, he treats her like a really poorly.
Yeah.
I think Elizabeth, right? Lizzie, it's really alike Mr. Bennet.
She took after him, right?
Yes.
Her character. That's why Lizzie is Mr. Bennet's favorite daughter, probably.
Of
because
course.
their character is much alike.
Yeah,
she's a bit acid and sarcastic. And she's quite different from her sisters.
Yes.
If you read the whole book, you will find out they have 5 daughters with different characters. And Jane, that is the oldest, she's very sweet, very calm all the time. Whereas Elizabeth is the very opposite. Even though she's a very polite woman, very smart woman, she's not what we can call a sweet girl.
So let me interrupt you. Let me ask you something before you go on. I haven't had the chance to read the book, but I did watch the movie. I really appreciate the movie, actually. And it seems that in the movie they portray Lizzie exactly as you've mentioned on the book. So I'd like to listen from you guys who have read the book. Is it like the same character, the Lizzie on the book? Is she very similar to Lizzie in the 2005 film?
I think in the movie, she's a little bit more, in the book, she's more subtle, like that, subtle? She's more subtle and more, the thing they say, oh, Lizzie, I know why you do this. And the movie, I think just for show how character is, they put her a little bit more than what she actually is.
It's maybe, well, my feeling regards that is the Lizzie in the movie, she has the face, right? And we can see all the feelings that we get on the book, like who Lizzie is. Everything, it gets a lot of potential in Kira's face. She's a fantastic actress, to begin with. So I think her expression is so much Lizzie, the Lizzie from the book. She has the face of a Lizzie. I think, they couldn't have chosen better.
Cool.
Sorry, Thiago, you have watched the movie, right?
Yes, I watched the movie.
Do you remember Mr. and Mrs. Bennet?
I think so. I think that I remember, but not with a lot of details.
Mm-hmm. But what do you remember from the relationship of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet?
I remember that a distance relationship, like a relationship much more, how can I say, much more fake relationship, social relationship, not a real relationship.
So it was like, they wanted to the appearance. They had the appearance of a family.
Yes, and I believe that it's common in the period of the book show us, and nowadays it's common too, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because many couples just like happy, but it's not real, all right?
Yes.
I think things have changed, right? But they haven't changed a lot.
Actually not.
Yes.
I see the marriage there, mainly because of Miss and Mr. Bennet. They are like a company, The Miss Bennet is like the owner, and Mrs. Bennet just, manage everything for her daughters to get well married. So it's kind of.
The daughters are like the product, right?
Yes, exactly like like Fernanda said.
And they were very concerned. Actually, the mother so much more concerned than the father, because they had the property thing. It was a law that the state was entailed to a male son. That means because they didn't have a male son, there wasn't a boy, they had 5 daughters. What would happen when Mr. Bennett passed away is that all the females, the mother and the 5 daughters, they would lose their home because the property would go to somebody else, to a male line of the family. That's why she was so concerned about getting her daughters married, because they would have no home, as Mr. Bennett would at some point pass away. So yeah, like when we see it from this point of view, the 5 daughters were a product. She wanted to have a house.
Oh yeah.
All right. So still considering only the first chapter, what can you say about the place and manner of living?
I think in a neighbor about with a lot of people rich and like
rich people?
Yes, and have more conditions like to have a card of the year like this, or have the new technologies and thinking in that time is happen.
So you think it would be a middle class, upper middle class neighborhood these days?
Yes, and the man will arrive in the neighbor. It will be more rich than the couple, like this. So I don't know
so
how.
The man who was about to arrive, that is Mr. Bingley, he was even richer.
Yes.
I don't recall it, but Mr. Bigley wasn't like a duke or something, or he was just rich?
No, none of them were royals, but they were landowners, which made them rich men. So some about the place where they lived, the manner of living. Do you think they lived in the city? Do you think they lived like in London? Or did they live in the countryside, in a small house, in a big house?
I believe it's a big house, and I remember it's like looks like Europe. I don't know the specific country.
England.
England, yep. England and the big house, yep.
It was a big countryside house. Actually, it was like a farm. It wasn't in the city. The woman, Mrs. Bennet, she was completely crazy about going to London, because at that time living in London was fashionable, right? Only rich people could afford a house in town. But they were not that rich. They were not rich enough to have a house in London, but they had a big countryside house. They had a big estate.
Okay.
And we can see that it wasn't really a crowded place, because the arrival of a new person caused all the neighbors to feel excited about it. Oh, there is a new man coming into the neighborhood. Is he single? How much money does he have? So everybody was interested in a new person because they lived in a very limited society.
Yes, this is a big news in the city when
everybody was talking about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody wanted to know who Mr. Bingley was. But they already knew, and what is fun for me is that even before getting to know Mr. Bingley, they knew that he was single and how much money he had. So these were important information, like at that point. Like they knew, okay, he's single and he's got, I think, they mention the amount of money. He's got 10,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they say.
He's a big opportunity for daughters.
Okay. We're gonna talk about that in a second.
Yeah. I think
Lohane.
it's very funny.
I'm sorry.
I think it's very funny. Every time that they're in that time, arrive a new rich suitor, and then they say, "Oh, let's throw a ball and make our daughter very, very beautiful for them to fall in love." It's, you know, and then there is very.
It's exactly what we see in Bridgerton. It's for me. It's like it's a lot of fun. They call it the season, right?
Yes,
it's the season for girls to go out in society. And the fact that they were out in society, that's the term they used, they are out in society. That means I want a husband, I can get a husband.
Yes.
Mating season, right?
Yeah, that's it. They call it in Bridgerton, they say the wedding market is open. So let's see who gets the best prize here. And it wasn't in the countryside for Pride and Prejudice, but it was pretty much the same. Okay, Lohane, can you read? This is, guys, this for the ones who read the chapter. This is the very first sentence of the book, and it's a very famous one that was left off the movie, and I cannot really accept that because I think it's what guides the entire book. Lohane, can you read it?
Sure. It is a true universal knowledge that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
And that's how the book starts, right? A single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. So if there is a single man here, of course he needs a wife, right?
It's obvious,
in possession of a good fortune. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. So Samuel, tell us, what was the importance of marriage in the late 1700s, early 1800s?
The money, or no?
The money was important?
The social... Sorry.
Leticia, what?
The social position.
Yeah. Social position, money.
Heirs.
Okay, Lohane, that's a very good point. Heirs, having kids.
Yes, having kids. You must marry and you must have a lot of kids for them to, you know.
The age or no?
Age, of course, because as we spoke of before, if a girl got to 20 and she was still unmarried, she was considered to be a maid, right?
Right.
But the age is a thing for women, but for men, it doesn't matter.
It was never a problem. They could wait forever.
Yeah.
It still isn't, right?
Yeah.
You see, things have not, it's been 300 years and here we are.
Yes, again. But it's very funny. No, not very funny, but I read I read the Bridgerton series, and I read this one too, and a lot of from Jane Austen. And I don't know, maybe it's because the Bridgerton is more recent, right? But they always show how the men are old, like 10 years old from the girls. They're like 80, and the men they are got to get married is like 33, because you know they have to go to college and travel the world and get very rich first, but then they can get married if they want, you know.
They can think of getting married. So okay, now I must find a wife and have kids and guarantee that my state or my title will be passed on in this line.
Yes.
Yeah, and during this time, the girls are raised to find a woman. So to find a man. The men are raised to be rich and to travel and to do different things, and women are raised to marry one of these guys.
There was only one problem here for men, if that can be considered a problem at all. When the family was a rich family and they had more than one son, the firstborn son was the one to have the title, the land, and the money. The second, the third, if that was the case, they had more choices and opportunities, but they would probably never get really rich because the money, the property, and everything would go to the firstborn son. But of course, they would live a very comfortable life. They would never have problems with money and stuff like that. So I wouldn't consider that a problem.
Yeah, I don't remember much, but usually the firstborn, they manage the land, the money, and then he gave money for his brother if they like.
Basically.
You know? They have, the countryside house is there. You can marry and go there. It's not a problem.
Exactly, that's the point. So the firstborn son, he had the responsibility to take care of the family members, right? So they would never face like financial problems and stuff like that, because if the first son would like support them and these things, you know.
But was Bingley one of these, like a firstborn son and responsible for his family?
Responsible for his sisters.
All right.
Which, you know, one of them was married and the second one was crazy about getting married to a rich man.
Of course.
Okay, so we see what the importance of marriage was. We have many points here, but especially for women, they would have no family money, right? So if they couldn't find a husband, if they didn't have an older brother or somebody to look after them, they would have no, you know, they would have no house, they would have no money, and they were not those ladies. They couldn't work. They actually didn't know how to do anything. Throughout the book, we see the word accomplished girl many times. So this girl is accomplished. What is an accomplished girl? She can embroider, she can draw, she can sing, she can play the piano, and basically that's all she can do, right? She's accomplished. She's a good girl to find a husband, but basically she cannot she cannot work to support herself. She doesn't know how to do it.
I just saw, not just saw, but I saw in movies and books sometimes like this, when the man is very good man, but he's very rich. And then when he will get married with the woman, how to say Dutch? It's like Dutch.
Dowry.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Dowry.
Yeah.
They say, oh no, I love you so much, so you may stay with your dowry for do whatever you want to do. But these is really things that we only see in movies, right? I don't think that it actually happened in real life back then.
But we saw it in Bridgerton in one of the episodes. The Duke says, no, I got the money of your dowry, but I'm going to deposit and you can use it as you wish because I don't need the money.
Yes.
But you know, it's weird, right? Again, we can talk about the woman being a product, but actually the family of the girl had to pay for the girl to get married. It's like, I'm getting rid of you. I'm getting rid of a problem. It's crazy.
So, but in this situation, marriage is very necessary because it's the same today you study and work. Because women in this age no possible se sustentar.
Yeah, women could not support themselves. They couldn't work. Yeah. The ladies, right?
So marriage is the business in this age.
Exactly. It was their
only
business.
Yes, it's only business for women. So it's interesting observar.
Isn't that crazy thing that if a woman, I don't know, kiss somebody, she cannot marry like Holy Mary again, you know, it's like, you know, she kissed a little kiss, and then, oh my
if she
God.
was seen going into a dark place with somebody, without anybody
rude.
else, she has been dishonored. Now you are gonna have to marry her.
Nobody else would marry her. Just this person that dishonor her. It's like so strange.
At least this one has changed, right?
It's interesting because you have girlfriends and boyfriends, have only fiance and married.
There
It's
is one
interesting.
very interesting, Leticia, you made a very interesting point. In the movie, there is a scene in which I think it's Charlotte. She approaches Elizabeth and she says she's engaged to Mr. Collins. And Elizabeth says, engaged to be married. And Charlotte says, what other kind of engagement is there? Of course, it is engaged to be married. Like there was no other kind of engagement. So you either get married to the person or you don't even stay around the person.
Yes, this is very interesting for very different about this day.
In this time, the woman have just a chance to get married a rich man to have a good life. Have just one chance in your life.
Basically, the only chance they had was getting married to a rich man.
Yes. If the person is good or not, if the guy would beat her up or not, it's not everyone's problem. It's just hers, you know. She's married, so she's okay.
Yeah, girls had no rights, right? They were not citizens.
Basically, they were not citizens. So the father would choose whether the girl was marrying this or that guy. So this one you can marry, that one you cannot marry because this one has more money and he will assure you a comfortable future and also for the family. And that's it. I mean, they had no choice. In the movie, we have this very different situation about Mr. Bennet. Because Elizabeth is proposed to by Mr. Collins, but Mr. Bennet doesn't really want her to marry him because he's a simpleton.
But in this time too, you if you married it and don't have kids is a problem too. You have to marry it, and after you have to have a kid. So if you not have a kid, everybody can talk a lot about your life and I don't know how to say, but desconfiar or inventar boatos. I don't know how to say this.
People, there would be a lot of rumors. And you know what? It was not only about having kids. It was about having a male heir. If the woman didn't have a boy, it was a problem. If the child, like the Bennets had 5 daughters, and it was a problem.
Exactly.
So can you imagine being a woman at that point? First, you gotta find a rich husband. Second, you gotta produce a male heir.
I think it's very nice. Not nice, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
probably I will not survive because I don't want to marry it and not have kids. So I will be I don't know how to say internada num hospício maybe.
Probably like, they could say that you are a witch, you know, because you don't want to get married. So,
yes. Yes.
Very good point. That must be satanic.
Yes.
Or there must be something really wrong about her. Like people speculated, like what's wrong with that girl? Why doesn't? I mean, in the first place, I think well, there was no I want to get married, right? Because it wasn't like really as if they had a choice. They would get married at some point. They wanted and they needed to get married at some point. So I think it was not really possible, or it wasn't. If it was possible, it wasn't common that a girl would just tell her parents, I don't want to get married. As somebody mentioned before, the girls were raised to find a husband. It was their sole purpose in life.
Normally, young girls with old men, and is not according with the I don't know how to say this, but in that time you don't have age to marry it. You have to like win a big premium when you married so young. Is absolutely
The younger,
crazy.
yeah, the younger the girl was, the better for the family. If the girl was like married at 14 or 15, it was a blast for the family.
This is or her. I don't know how to say this, but it's
That's absolutely
inacceptable.
awful.
Yes.
Yes, I see the boys. Are you shocked, boys? You were not really,
Yes.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
Are you a
I
bit
know that
shocked?
is a I know that is a different story, but when I was reading Game of Thrones, we have a lot of the situations very similar to they are you discussing now. For example, when a couple they have to be a man as a first child because the man has to unhide the whole land the
Inherit.
and yeah, exactly. They have to repeat the word, please.
Inherit.
Unhide, exactly.
Inherit.
Inherit. The men have to inherit the land, and when the first child is a woman, is a problem for them. There is a story on Game of Thrones about a war caused by this because the woman wanted the throne because she was born first, and then a lot of deaths and everything happened.
And you see, and this is what makes Game of Thrones just like 50%. It's just 50% fiction, right? Because a huge part of the story is based on what happened, for example, in Europe in medium age. It's not so different from what actually happened. All right, guys. So let's move on to the second part. Fernanda, can you read this part, please?
Yes. Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of a large fortune, 4 or 5 thousand a year. What a fine thing for our girls.
Okay, so that's what they had never met Mr. Bingley in person, but they knew that he was a single man of large fortune. When they say 4 or 5 thousand a year, that means the amount of money he had a large fortune. E nesse caso, o livro se refere o tempo todo a isso, e são os rendimentos da pessoa ali. O que as propriedades, as terras da pessoa rendem no ano. So if you read the book, you will see that the Bennet's family have like 2,000 a year or so. Mr. Bingley has 5,000 and Mr. Darcy has 10,000 a year. So when people hear about Mr. Darcy, it's like, oh, 10,000 a year. It was a lot of money. So they talk about the cost of the castles and stuff.
I question me how the people know about this because
I asked myself the very same thing. How could people know how much he made a year?
The famous
I'm question about this.
Gossip.
Yes, it's problem.
Gossiping. Oh yeah.
Basic.
So he had the two main characteristics that a mother was looking for her daughters. He was a single man of large fortune.
The difference now, you have media socials.
Social media.
Social medias. You don't have to need ask for person about who were the people show of all the people. So in that time, it's so hard to talk about the life of the other person because you don't have nothing like not cell phone like this. So it's awful. You have to go drink a tea. Like, oh, how about your fortune? Like, it's so stranger.
But you know what? There was a very efficient, network, a contact network. Usually, if you read books that were written at that time, you will see that the people who worked for the families, they were usually responsible for, passing the news on.
Yes.
And if they wanted to know something, they wouldn't ask the family. They would ask the people who worked for that family because they knew everything.
But isn't it the same nowadays? You see, well, at least here in my town, when people go and talk over other people's lives, it's usually the working class that works for those rich people. They go ahead and spread the word about whatever happens to the people they work to. So the rich people will talk among themselves and share stuff on social media. Only, but the poor will get the real information, who's actually sick, what actually happens in their homes, and talk among the other poor. Don't you think that kind of happens too? Now, I still see this happening a lot.
It's because they see, that's what you mentioned, right? They know what's going on.
Yeah.
And social media is what they want us to see, which is different.
Yeah, it's like a store and a magazine.
So I think, well, maybe 250 years ago, 300 years ago, it wasn't so different because the ladies and the gentlemen would gather around the table to have tea, to have dinner, and they would talk about the things, that were interesting for the families to talk about. But then the people who were serving, they got what what was actually going on. So women, we know that for women, it was maybe even more important. Just a second. Okay, my connection was unstable, but it seems to be back now.
No, it's normal now.
So for women, it was even more important. But for men, it was important too, because they had to guarantee that a title, if they had one, that the state would remain in the family, that it wouldn't go to somebody else. That's why it was so important to have a male heir. And the last one we're going to talk about here, let me see, Tiago, can you read this one, please?
Yes. But consider your daughters. Only think what an establishment it would be for one of them. Sir William and Lady Lucas are determined to go. Merely on that account, for in general, they visit no newcomers. Indeed, you must go, for it will be impossible for us to visit him if you do not.
Okay, so that was like the center of the discussion between Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, right? She wanted him to visit that Mr. Bingley. Why? Why is that? So, Thiago, can you tell us what kind of rule or social etiquette can we find in this part of the book? What was the main rule?
Let me see. The parents of her must go prepare her daughters to be ready for the late honor visit. That's it.
Well, basically that's it. But there is an important rule for society that existed at that point. Guys, can somebody explain what the rule was?
Maybe people rich people married with rich people and will be a big family rich like this.
Mm-hmm. Usually they wouldn't move upwards or downwards when getting married, right? It was difficult for a person to marry a person who was really high above or really below his or her rank. But basically, guys, what this paragraph is about is something that sounds so strange for us nowadays. But if the father didn't visit Mr. Bingley first to talk about the family as a neighbor, it meant that the girls could not talk to Mr. Bingley. It was not as if, hey, I am Fulano, nice to meet you. No, it wasn't like that. Mr. Bingley should go, Mr. Bennet should go there and introduce himself to the new neighbor. Then he would be able to introduce his daughters. So the women, they were not allowed to approach somebody and introduce themselves.
Okay.
Don't have a choice to will be married. Just accept what your parents' choice.
It's also about like whoever your parents choose, but it's about the introduction itself.
Yes, it's like the first approach about
yes.
Her parents, yeah, her father, yes.
Her father, because the mother couldn't do it either.
Yes, because women don't care, all right, in this society.
They were not important.
Yes.
So if the man of the house didn't visit first, the girls, the women, they couldn't be introduced. They couldn't talk. They wouldn't be able to talk to that man. And that's why she was so worried about it. Like if he didn't go, other families would do it first. Other fathers would visit him first, and other daughters would be introduced first.
Yes, it looks like the father offered his daughters, yeah,
basically
for the new rich man.
Because
he's a good partner for his daughter.
It's the business, right?
Yes, it's a good business, yeah.
If we read further the book, we will see an extract like Mr. Bennet asks if this is Mr. Bingley's intention in settling in that place. Like, does he really want to get married? Otherwise, I'm going to visit him for nothing. Like, there is no point in my visiting him if he doesn't want to marry any of the girls. And, you know, there was no point in making an acquaintance. And you will see also, if you read the book, it's not only about the person. Of course, it must be a man that is introduced first, but it's also about rank. A lower rank person couldn't, even though it was a man, couldn't introduce himself to a higher rank person. So the lower rank people would have to wait until they were introduced, they were noticed by the higher rank people, which is crazy, right?
Yes.
So if you were, it doesn't matter if you were gentlemen.
It's kind of similar, right? Nowadays, it's still similar in that if you stop and think about it.
I couldn't, it's not as if I can approach Anita, for example, and introduce myself.
have a little difference, I think. The woman is take the, I don't know how to say this, but don't need the parents to talk about married with a rich man. Some women likes to want this, just have this vision like I have to marry with a rich man, just don't have anything to do anything.
They have no other objectives in life, actually. It's not as if they could choose to study, to live a lonely life, or to live their lives alone. They were raised to find a husband. And, well, I believe there weren't many girls with a different mindset because it was their only possibility at that point. So it was difficult for women to see something different. Women couldn't go to university. Women couldn't, ladies, okay? I'm talking about the ladies of society, not about like people in general, poor people who lived in London, because women could already, and they should already, they had to work to support their families. We're talking about ladies and people of society, ranked people here. even though they didn't have a lot of money, but they belonged to this higher rank, this upper rank society.
Yeah.
So guys, well, I think we are a little behind schedule because, you know, the conversation was really good. Mas eu queria saber rapidinho de vocês, o que vocês acharam, o que a gente pode mudar, o que a gente pode melhorar na nossa experience de book club.
Eu gostei, eu só tenho uma dúvida. A gente vai ter um cronograma de leitura para seguir junto e vai ter essas reuniões?
Normalmente é a ideia, né, do book club. A gente define ali um livro ou alguns trechos de um livro para a gente poder trabalhar. Só que a ideia é ter, além do book, a gente também ter o movie. Então a gente vai alternando aí também. A gente vai ter um dia que a gente vai falar de um movie ou de um episódio de uma série.
Entendi. Mas aí a questão desse livro a gente não vai continuar junto, aí cada um vai continuar depois. Ou
vocês
vai
podem continuar a leitura. A gente, se vocês tiverem interesse, a gente pode marcar, por exemplo, o nosso próximo book club. A gente pode escolher um outro livro, ou a gente pode continuar falando desse. A gente, né, vamos agora ler até o capítulo tal, aí a gente continua a discussão. It's up to you.
Ok.
I like the idea that keeps on this book.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't know if everybody agree, but I believe it's a good book. It's a good story for discuss in group.
I'm according with Thiago, and I think that can be like a practice. Like some words will have more difficult than others, and we'll have to explain these more easy when you talk about the word, have a lot of questions, and you like talk I don't know, like tintim por tintim about the libro, the book.
Okay, we can do it.
Yes, I like today. I didn't like more because I didn't read the book before.
But you were familiar with the story,
yes,
so it helped.
Yes, but I like to discuss about the book, and I would like keep on the letter with the group and keep on the discuss with the book club with cross module.
All right. So we're gonna talk about it like the teachers. We're going to define how many chapters we should read and how long it's going to take. And we're going to have a next book club session. And we're going to continue talking about Pride and Prejudice. But bear in mind, like Marcel made a very good contribution today when he linked Pride and Prejudice to Game of Thrones, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they are like worlds apart, you know, we can see the very same thing happening in like we have a novel here, like two different kinds of novel, a fiction and a novel by Jane Austen that talks about the picture society, and I think it was very good contribution.
Yes, and this book is a classic book, all right? And almost classic books is always update with
They're always up to date.
Yes, with other subjects in the society. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Because of that, it's a classic book, all right?
That's why it becomes a classic book.
Yes.
You know what? It sort of depends. It doesn't really depend on what kind of book it is to become a classic, because Harry Potter is being studied by literature people in universities nowadays. And,
Instant classic, right? Harry Potter.
Yeah, but it has become part
for new
of
generation. It's a classic book too.
Which one?
Harry Potter. Harry Potter for the new generation is a classic book nowadays.
It is. It has already become object of study in some universities.
Yes. King of Rings, I mean.
Lord of the Rings.
Yes, Lord of Rings, yeah.
But I gotta say that Lord of the Rings for me is like one of the best books ever written, because it's fantastic. Harry Potter is not really my kind of book, but Lord of the Rings, oh God.
Yes, I never read.
If people don't talk about it in universities, they should, but they do.
They do.
All right.
All right, guys. So thank you very much. Can any of the okay, for the ones who haven't said anything, how do you like the experience? What do you think we could improve?
I like a
Well,
lot.
I like it. I just have to read the book for the next book club. I will be more prepared. But I was looking at the book on the Kindle right now, and I realized that the chapters are all small, so it won't be
Yes, they are
it won't
all
be
very short.
difficult. It will be a very easy a very easy reading.
And the story is very interesting. I gotta say, eu usei a oportunidade que eu tive de usar one of my favorite books here, because I'm totally crazy about this book. So it is my first book club session too. So I couldn't choose any other. I couldn't choose any other book like in the world. And I'm very glad that you want to continue reading, and we're going to continue talking about it.
Right.
That was a perfect pick, Silvio. Good call on that.
All right, guys. So thank you very much. Have a good evening. Not good evening. Good afternoon, right? have a nice weekend, and we're gonna meet again next week.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very
Enjoy
much
your
for
weekend.
participating.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.